Hi guys, I'm Rochelle and I'm a Ravenclaw, and today I'm going to be doing my April wrap-up for you guys. I read 24 things in April, so we are just gonna try and smash this out as quickly as possible. The first thing that I read in the month of April was Guilty Pleasures by Laurel K. Hamilton. I gave this book 3 stars. This was a book that I had very high expectations for going in because I know quite a few of the booktubers that I like, whose opinions I trust, really enjoy the series. I found that this book was really short. I was surprised by how slow the pacing felt. I did enjoy the writing. It was really easy to read, but yeah, there was just something missing in this for me. This book follows Anita Blake. She's a necromancer or something. She raises the dead so that they can, talk about like will disputes or provide information potentially into who murdered them. Anita Blake also has a side position of a vampire hunter. So yeah, I enjoyed the characterization of this. I felt the world building was a little bit lacking. So I'm interested to pick out the next book and see if any of the issues that I had with this one are expounded upon. The next book that I finished in the month of April was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I listened to this on audiobook. I gave this one 3 stars. I'm not a huge literary fiction dystopian person. I did really enjoy the narrator for this book. I felt that he had the necessary emotion and tone for the story. I also was listening to this while I was traveling, so that might have had something to do with it because I was not 100% invested in this. I did really enjoy the story. I enjoyed where it went. I enjoyed the characterization. This book follows a theatre troupe and several people at the production as they deal with the destruction of probably 90% of the human race, I would say. Really interesting. Stopped earlier than I would have liked. I would have liked to get a little bit more out of this, but hopefully I will pick up another of this author's books and enjoy it more. The next thing that I listened to on audiobook was The Dispatcher by John Scalzi. This was actually my first experience with a John Scalzi book. I'll put a little picture up here hopefully. This was a free gift from Audible at Christmas time or something. It was only just over 2 hours long if I remember correctly, but I did really enjoy the story. I wanted it to keep going. I wanted more of the characters. I wanted more of the world building. So The Dispatcher follows a man whose job it is to kill people, basically. There is an event that has occurred in this world where suddenly people stop dying from violent events. If they're murdered, then they wake up at home, kind of thing. And this follows this man as he is trying to find out where another dispatcher has disappeared to. And that reveals a lot of stuff going on maybe behind the scenes that wasn't really up to snuff. I'm definitely going to be reading more of John Scalzi's work soon. I gave The Dispatcher 4 stars. I just wanted more, give me more. So the next thing that I read was The Call of the Wild by Jack London. I gave that 3 stars. I know it's a classic, but it didn't evoke the emotions in me that I think it was meant to. I really liked Buck, but I didn't connect with any of the other characters in it, and because of that, like, the ending left me feeling a little meh. The next book that I read in the month of April was The Magicians by Lev Grossman. I gave this 4 stars. I was quite surprised, to be honest. I expected to go into this absolutely fall in love with it. Lots of people that I know and trust said that this would absolutely be the book for me, that I would just like go crazy for it. But I was under the impression that this followed the main character Quentin. This whole trilogy would take place over his 5 years at like this magical university. We finished the 5 years about halfway through this book. So I was like, alright, what's going on? Where are we going from here? Like, I've still got 2.5 books to go and we're already like completely out of what I thought that this would be. I did really enjoy it. I had trouble connecting with some of these characters. I guess that's a theme for this month. And so again, the end of the story left me feeling a little underwhelmed. Like, there was some things that happened at the end that I am assuming it was meant to provoke a pretty visceral emotional response, and I was pretty blasé about it, to be honest. So the next thing I read in the month of April was The Discipline issue 1 by Peter Milligan. I got this from a Humble Bundle that I bought. I did not like this book. I gave it 1 star. The plot didn't feel like anything to me. The characters felt really like shallow and like one-dimensional. Yeah, this was not a comic for me. I will not be continuing on with this, as I guess is evident by my 1 star. But yeah, I honestly don't think I can think of a redeeming thing about this for me. The next thing I read in April was Demonic issue 1 by Christopher Sabella. Again, I got this through a Humble Bundle deal. I gave this 2 stars. Again, I really did not like the art. I didn't like the story. I didn't like the characters. Really, something did not sit well with me for this. This personally, for me, felt super disrespectful of people suffering from particular mental illnesses like schizophrenia, or someone suffering from delusions and hearing voices. Was not a fan, and apparently not a lot of other people were either. It's got a pretty low rating on Goodreads, and there were only 2 issues released of this. The last one was in September, so I'm going to guess that this has either gone on hiatus or been cancelled, so I guess that should tell you volumes. The next things that I read in April I'm going to do really quickly, because I've already done a wrap-up concerning these next 6 books, because these are books that I read for my Tome Topple readathon. So I'm going to do a really quick run through of these. So the first thing that I read for Tome Topple was Blood Song by Anthony Ryan. I gave this 4 stars. Definitely some trigger warnings here. There was some use of the word savage that I didn't agree with, but I did really enjoy the story. I really enjoyed the world building. I really enjoyed the character development. I am really looking forward to reading the next one. Hopefully the savage thing will be unpacked a little bit more in the next book or in the final book. Just, if you are sensitive to that kind of thing, be aware of that if you decide to read this. Next thing that I read for Tome Topple in the month of April was The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This is an audiobook that I listened to. That was a mistake. I really didn't like the narrator. This was really difficult and confusing to listen to. Regret that decision. I gave this 3 stars, mostly because I kept having to like rewind and re-listen to stuff because I didn't get all the necessary information the first time through. I enjoyed the world building. The plot didn't really go anywhere for me in this. It's just all of our main characters like getting together to go on an adventure, and that took over 400 pages. So yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of this. I also really didn't like some of the characters that we've spent a lot of time with. There are two specifically that I'm thinking of where every time a chapter would come up I'd be like, oh, I have to listen to this guy again. I am going to read the next book in this series as a physical book or an ebook. I'm not going to do the audiobooks again. The next book that I finished for Tome Topple is The Burning Stone by Kate Elliott. This is the third book in a 7-book fantasy series, so I can't really tell you much about it. I gave this one 4 stars. I'm really enjoying this series. I just really like Kate Elliott's world building, and I know that this is based off historical events with like a magical fantasy twist on it. So yeah, everything feels really fleshed out. The characters feel really fleshed out. I'm curious to see where this goes and what happens to some of my favorite people. The next thing that I read in Tome Topple was the largest and heaviest thing that I read in the month of April, and that is the Infinity Gauntlet Omnibus by Jim Starlin, Ron Mars, and Ron Lim. This thing, good lord, is so heavy. Like I'm having trouble like holding this up. This is over 1,000 pages and collects all of the comic issues relevant to the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. I gave this 3 stars. It doesn't actually collect all of the comics relevant to the Infinity Gauntlet because there's like a epilogue graphic novel called Infinity War that you're also meant to read after finishing this, which is another 400 pages. I really enjoy the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I went in expecting to see a lot of my like favorites from there, but this mainly focused on the Silver Surfer, and there are a bunch of people in there that I don't recognize nor have any attachment to, like Cloak and Dagger and Adam Warlock. All of the people that I care about, like the Hulk and Doctor Strange, etc., don't really get a lot of view time in this. And this was also written mostly late 80s, early 90s. So the art in this is really dated looking. I enjoy the colours, but yeah, the art in this is pretty dated and not to my particular liking. I probably won't go back and read any of the older Marvel comics. I might try reading some of the newer stuff like Ms. Marvel and see if I maybe like the more modern stuff better. The next thing that I finished in the month of April, and the second to last thing that I finished for Tome Topple, was my first 5-star read of the month, and that is Written and Read by Anne Bishop. This is a urban fantasy paranormal romance kind of deal. It's definitely responsible for my current urban fantasy paranormal romance kick that I'm on. Like, I need more. I instantly, as soon as I finished this, was like, what other urban fantasies do I have? Because I need more urban fantasy. Like, I need it. This follows the main character of Meg. Meg is a blood prophet, which means when she gets cut, she has a vision of the future. Meg escapes the people that are in control of her, and so she runs away and is hiding within this group of other paranormal beings. Like there's shapeshifters, there's elementals, there's vampires. Yeah, super good. I listened to this audiobook. The narrator was fantastic, like absolutely exceptional, completely exquisite, completely embodied all of the characters. Just absolutely going to be listening to the rest of these, and I also immediately went out and ordered all of the other books in this series that are out. So you can expect to see those in a future A-Hall B TBR C wrap-up. The last thing that I finished for Tome Topper was Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. There are quite a few booktubers going around at the moment reading this, absolutely loving it. I enjoyed this, I gave it 4 stars. This was very readable, like it wasn't overly dense or too heavy in tone. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, but I did know the twist at the end, so I kept being like, okay, when are we going to do this? When are we going to do this? When are we meeting this person? That kind of ruined the experience for me because I knew what was coming. And yeah, so I was just expecting it the whole time. Like none of this caught me off guard. I was super invested in the characters. Like there was one point at the end of the book where I was like yelling at them mentally to just get their shit together. Definitely going to be reading more of Charlotte Bronte. So after the end of the Tome Topper Readathon, I was definitely in the mood for some shorter stories. So the next thing that I finished in the month of April was Easy by Tamira Webster. I gave this book 5 stars. I really liked the message that it sent. I really enjoyed the romance aspect of it. I really enjoyed the characters, like I completely understood where they were both coming from. There is trigger warnings that you need to be aware of before you read this. There's trigger warnings for rape, there's trigger warnings for sexual assault, there's trigger warnings for self-harm, there's trigger warnings for violent death. Like, this is not an easy book to read. Like it is, like you will just devour this sucker. But yeah, this is definitely not something you should go into expecting light, fluffy, fun romance. Like that's not what this is about. Be very aware of that. The next thing that I read in the month of April was Blood Kiss by J.R. Ward. This is book 1 of the Black Dagger Legacy, but like book 13 or 14 of the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. This is a spin-off series, but the events do take place in between the books of the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, so you have to read them kind of together, or you'll get more out of them if you read them together. I had some issues connecting with the characters. I felt some of the characters made really dumb decisions to begin with. Wasn't super invested in the ship that this was pushing, so yeah, I did give it 4 stars. I did enjoy it. I did read it really quickly, but yeah, this was just a little bit lacking for me. Yeah, and the ending of this wrapped up a little too nicely for my liking. Wasn't blown away by this, but still really enjoyed it. The next thing that I read in the month of April was Drifter Volume 1 by Ivan Brandon. I gave this 4 stars. I was intrigued by the world. I liked the art. I liked the characters. Some things were a little convoluted, but I am interested to see where this goes. So I might pick up the next volume. Again, this was part of the Humble Bundle that I picked up, so it's a good taster pack is what I'm learning. The next thing that I read, also from the Humble Bundle, was Deadly Class Volume 1 by Rick Remender, and I gave that 3 stars. I wasn't a huge fan of the art for this one. Like, it's decent. I liked the color scheme, but I wasn't a huge fan of the art. I wasn't a huge fan of the characters, nor did I connect with them particularly. I liked the overall idea and the overarching plot potential, but I'm not sure that this one is for me. I am planning to read at least probably the next 2 or 3 volumes before I make a hard decision on this. Yeah. The next thing that I read in April was The Painted Man by Peter V. Brett. I have been meaning to pick this up forever. I know lots of people have been recommending this to me for ages and ages, and I feel really dumb that I haven't picked this up sooner now. I gave this 5 stars. I think my Goodreads says it all. Like, my review of that is literally 3 words. It's completely, utterly brilliant. I am really hoping to get to the next books in this series very soon, hopefully by the end of the year. I know that this series is still being published, so I'm going to get to the end and then I'm going to complain about having to wait for the next, however long this takes. I will give trigger warnings for sexual assault, dismemberment, and rape. Again, be aware, the fantasy stuff that I read does tend to have heavier themes and darker tones. That's just what I prefer in my fantasy. I'm a mature adult, you know, I can't just read light fluffy things anymore. I need some meat. And that's what this is. Having said that, the next thing that I finished in the month of April was The Rosey Project by Graham Simpson. Probably butchered that last name. So I read this. This is about a man who decides instead of traditional dating, he's going to put a questionnaire up online, and anyone that sufficiently passes the questionnaire, he will go on a date and see if they are truly compatible. His friend decides to throw a spanner in the works by a young woman named Rosey, who absolutely would not pass the questionnaire. But yeah, he's compelled to help her because he's a geneticist and she is currently on a mission to find her dad. That was pretty good. I gave this 4 stars. I enjoyed the characters. It was a good palate cleanse after a couple of heavier books. Yeah, did really quite enjoy this. Next 2 things that I finished in the month of April was Descender Volume 1 and Descender Volume 2 by Jeff Lemire. I gave them both 4 stars. I really am intrigued by the mystery of this world. Like, a lot of stuff isn't explained. I will definitely, probably, depending on time, be continuing this. I really enjoyed the characters. I really enjoyed the world building. The writing was good. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, but it was just something that wasn't quite right enough for it to get 5 stars. Again, another one that I got out of the Humble Bundle, so yeah, check out Humble Bundle if you haven't already. The next book that I read in April was The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. Again, I'm getting really hit and miss results for my audiobooks recently. Like, I've got the audiobook for this. I really enjoyed the setting. I wasn't a huge fan of the plot. Like, I guessed quite early some of the stuff that was going on. There was a few surprises for me in this, but yeah, the writing didn't quite capture me. The setting I didn't love. I enjoyed, but I wasn't like instantly drawn in. Empirically can tell that this is very beautiful prose. It just didn't evoke the emotions in me that I wanted it to. Again, I did go into this with super high expectations because so many people I know said I would love it. I know a lot of people that I really trust also really loved this book, and yeah, I think my expectations again may have played a part in this. I will continue on purely because I'm intrigued by certain aspects of potentially what's going to happen. I just wish that we'd seen more of the Cemetery of Forgotten Books. The second to last thing that I read this month was an ARC I got from NetGalley. This was Yes Chef by Lisa Joy. I gave this 2 stars. I have worked in hospitality for several years. The world presented in this does not mesh with my knowledge of the world of hospitality. So maybe that's just me coming in with my own preconceptions and the author having her own experiences. Yeah, I was really frustrated with the main character. I did not agree with a lot of her choices. I thought she was being really stupid at some points. Yeah, I enjoyed the ending, but it shouldn't have taken that long. It really, really, really should not have taken that long. And this was only like a short book. This was like under 250 pages, and I felt like it took forever for the main character to get where she was supposed to go. Wasn't a huge fan of the writing. It was funny, but that was about its only pro for me. And the final book that I read in the month of April was Sisters Red by Jackson Pierce. Now, I gave this 2 stars. My sister read this book sometime last year or the year before, I believe. She didn't really like it, and I didn't really enjoy it. A lot of things here were super convenient. A lot of things in this was overly drawn out. A lot of the choices the characters made I felt was really dumb, and I didn't understand their emotional motivations for a lot of stuff. They wrapped up the end really nicely and neatly, and this is meant to be the first book in a series, so I felt that it wrapped up too nicely and neatly, like there wasn't any threads going to continue into the next book. So yeah, I was not a huge fan of this and will not be continuing this series. Okay, so those were all of the books that I read in April. Good lord, I did the math and I read just under 9,000 pages in the month of April. I read 8,875 to be specific. Oh boy, there were a lot of highs and a lot of lows this month. I would love to hear your opinions down in the comments below. If you've read and enjoyed any of this, if you've read and disliked any of these, if you're excited to pick any of these up, I would love to know. Yeah, that's it for me for this wrap up. I hope you have a magical day. Bye.